I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time.
Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm Cynthia James. I'm your host. I get the honor of introducing you to women that inspire me, that are change makers, and that have stepped fully into who they've come here to be. And so I want them to inspire you. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, YouTube. Please subscribe. I do these every week. And these women, I promise you, will take you to another level of understanding how important you are. So my guest today is Pam Pech. She is a former educator, business executive, and entrepreneur. She's a retiree from corporate America, but she's not retired by any stretch of the imagination. She is now passionate about and works full-time creating programs and facilitating discussions which promote self-understanding and sense of purpose. Her corporate experience includes over 25 years of recruiting, executive management, franchise, and small business expertise, as well as training and program development. She's an avid reader and frequently incorporates books into her programs, both with adults and children. And she especially embraces books by Kobe Yamada, whose book, What Do You Do with an Idea, has become a cornerstone of Discovery of Self programs. So Discovery of Self programs are created out of Pam's desire to bring people together through conversation. I'm thinking that's needed. Not only do these discussions illustrate the power of listening to each other, but also how to share ideas that bring both individual and collective discovery of purpose. Pam, thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor to be included. Thank you.
Well, I want to dive into your programs, but I want you to just tell our audience where you came from. Where were you born? And how did you get to be a corporate person?
Well, at the beginning, I think corporate was the last thing I ever thought I would be. My father thought that anyone who was in business wasn't to be trusted. I was born into a very religious family. My father was a deacon in the Catholic Church, and my mom taught in the Catholic school. So I was raised with a very religious background. And note, I don't say spiritual, very, very religious, very black and white. But an interesting story is my mother used to tell this story to anyone who would listen, how I was born 9 months and 15 minutes after they were married. And she never was able to have another child after me, even though they wanted a lot of children. So somewhere in my psyche, I had this feeling that I was here for a reason, that there must be a reason why I came so quickly and no other children came. Now, years later, when my mother was 94, I asked her, why did you tell that story so often? And she'd say, because I wanted my mother to know that I didn't have sex before marriage. So I had to laugh. So she had her reason for saying it, but it always just registered with me, wow, I was in a hurry to get here. And the reason I've gone through that long story is because that has filtered into every aspect of my life, is that I have a purpose here. And it kept me grounded on times when I wasn't sure what was my next step. It kept me grounded that I believed I was here for a reason.
Yeah. I believe that we're all here for a reason, but how incredible that one story planted such a seed within you. And so your father didn't think they were trustworthy. So how did you get into corporate America?
That's a really good question. I started out as a teacher, and then I went through a divorce, and I realized that I was going to be pretty much responsible for my life from here on in. And I had to make money to take care of my 2 children too. So that's when I went back to school and got an M.B.A. and ended up doing things again that I love to do, like recruiting and helping people find their true calling. So whatever it was that I did, somehow it still seeped into the value of whatever I was doing.
Oh, I love that. It's so interesting because I had a stint in corporate America and I actually started in HR, and the recruiting part was the best part. some of the other HR stuff wasn't so great for me, but the recruiting and supporting people. So I want to know, when you decided to step away from corporate America, then what got you into working so closely with people on self-discovery?
Well, as a recruiter, I have interviewed literally thousands of people. And so many times people would say to me, I am in this job, I have a master's degree, and I hate it. Well, why did you take that job? Something along the way, either a parent said, you won't make any money doing what you love to do, or they got a friend who had a business, and so they gave them a job during college, and that's sort of everyone who looked at their resume said, oh, you must like to do that. And so many people ended up in positions that they weren't really happy in. And so I had written not a book, but just the short story for myself, sort of journaling, saying, you know what, someday there's going to be a 52 pickup where everything's going to go in the air and everyone's going to come down and they're going to be doing exactly what they love to do. And ironically, I believe that's what's happening now. I believe that we're in this era for a reason, and that people are saying, why am I spending 24/7 doing something that doesn't make me happy? Who am I? And what can I do to serve the world?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it was one of the gifts of the pandemic. It's like everybody got sat down and they had to go like, what am I doing? Is this feeding my soul? Is this important? I mean, I know I did it for me. I could move into a big time of reflection. And how do I want to spend my last days on the planet when so many people were leaving? Like, do I want to do something that doesn't light me up?
Absolutely. Cynthia, I couldn't agree more. We had to go in more ways than one inside. And we had to look at, why am I here? And is what I'm doing really the calling that I have meant to do?
Yeah. So, I'm really interested in your discussions, right? And your conversations, because I think it's one of the things that's a big challenge on the planet right now is people listening to each other. I mean, between politics and pandemic, it's been fascinating what's been going on in families and friendships and communities, right? And so how, first of all, what's the premise of having everybody sit down, and what do they understand when they come in if they're going to have a conversation?
Well, you know what? That's kind of God working, because it amazes me that I can call it a soul chat and have it in a coffee shop, or I can give it a title and say, we're going to talk about what do you do with an idea, or I can have it very formal and do a women's leadership conference with a very specific title. It doesn't matter. When people come in and have an opportunity to express their feelings and be truly listened to, almost always there's tears. And you wonder what overwhelmed them. And it's just this opportunity to be heard. And they also share stories that make your jaw drop. I'll give you an example. On October 20th, I rented a room at the museum here called the Discovery, which I love. And I'm working with them to see if I can get a dedicated room for discovery of self. But I invited 20, I think I sent out 23 invitations to thought leaders in the city, some of whom I did not know. They represented each of what Oz Hillman calls the 7 mountains of influence: religion, education, business, sociology, family, all the different areas. I invited these people, expecting, because many of them don't even know who I am, that if I got 6 or 7, I would be really pleased. 18 people came. Not only that, but there was a young man who worked in the print shop where I had the invitations printed. And he said to me, I couldn't help but notice what you had written on your invitation. Would it be okay if I came? And I said, absolutely. And he said, could I bring a couple of other people too? So I was so pleased. Not only were there people who had very unique perspectives on their view of the world, but also we had 3 generations there. And I feel like that's important because as I get older, I realize that someone else is going to carry it on. But back to your question, these people went around the room and told their story. And the takeaway was each of them had experienced some very difficult aspect of their life. And yet they decided that that was not going to get them down and that they were going to use that knowledge to help other people. Without exception, literally everyone shared that story. And they didn't even know each other.
That's very inspiring. So that makes me wonder, what was the turning point for you what were you up against that made you make a different choice? And I know you said you got divorced and you went back to school, but was there another challenge in your life that made you go deeper into what you wanted?
I would love to share a story, but I don't have one. I feel like as my mother-in-law would say, from little on, I always loved people. And at 12, I was an exchange student to Mexico City, which is very young. And I don't recall learning any history or any Spanish, but I loved the people. And I worked in orphanages. My dad was a social worker. And so I was given access to jobs with these children. And I heard their stories. I worked with Cuban refugees, migrant workers. And I've always had a heart for the person who wouldn't necessarily have a voice. It's just always been a part of who I am.
Well, that's quite beautiful. And what an extraordinary legacy you've got here, a journey that you've had here. And I want to, you have a very positive outlook on life. Where did that come from?
God gave it to me. I think that you and I have a lot in common in terms of, I know in your book you put that we are great manifestations of the divine. And discovery of self, if you notice, I have a small d and capital S. And it's because I do believe that each one of us is a spark of creativity and that we are not victims. I'm also a certified soul collage facilitator. And I was asked to do, during the pandemic, a workshop with the Domestic Violence Resource Center. And I noticed that these women here, I had a 2-hour session ready and tell them about Carl Jung. And they came on screen and they had children in their lap and trying to find a job and trying to find housing and safety and all of these things. And I thought, what do I have that I could help them? And the answer was how they respond. I can't save or fix people. No one does. But in fact, I have a quote from, I think her name is Tammy Plunkett. She has written books. And she said, people don't need to be saved or rescued. She said, people need knowledge of their own personal power and how to access it. And so that is a part of that positive outlook, is how we're here to learn. We're here to, as you say, experience life. And if we just realize that, well, that wasn't such a great idea, won't do that again. But we're here to learn. We're not bad people. We are good people just trying to learn. And we have to keep that love out there of ourselves as well as other people.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. Tell me what a soul collage is.
Soul collage is a process that was developed based on the psychology of Carl Jung. And it uses pictures and your dialogue and your journaling to uncover parts or aspects of your subconscious that help you reveal more about yourself. It's an amazing program. It's almost like you create your own set of tarot cards, except the pictures are pictures that you have picked out. Some are intentional. You may see a picture of a thin person thinking, this is my goal. I want to lose weight. Or you might see a picture of Easter Island or some metaphysical shape or art, and it just resonates with you. And you have no idea why. But each one of those starts sharing with you, your own subconscious is coming forward, especially through dialogue. You start explaining what that card means to you, and it just reveals a lot about your soul.
That's incredible. And how long is this process?
I took the facilitator training. It was over a week or a weekend, but it's now in hundreds of countries, and they are using it for therapy. They're using it for PTSD. It's very well known. You can find even in Minnesota, there are localized facilitators. They're all over the world. It's beautiful.
That's incredible. I was just wondering, if, for the people that are listening, is it a long process, or is it a workshop, or how, what's the process?
To become a facilitator is you go through a process, like I said, but I have taught classes on Zoom during the pandemic, and I do an intro that's a couple of hours long. And that way people can decide, do I really want to get into it, or is it just something, it's so much more than vision boards. People a lot of times picture the picture and the feelings and think that, oh, I'm going to manifest, but it isn't about that. It's more about uncovering your subconscious.
That sounds just intriguing. And so ladies, I just, when we get her information, if you're interested in this, check it out, So what's your vision? One of the things I was reading, is that that you've created women's leadership programs and something called, you were creating a warriorship training program. What is that?
Warriorship training, Margaret Wheatley.
Yes, love
she
her.
has a warrior for the human spirit, and that just triggered me even more so. But I feel like my warriors, that I call them my warriors, are these people that are like the young man from the print shop who came in and said, how can I get involved? There are people who want to know what they can contribute, and they don't even know where to start. And I believe, much like you, that it starts with our intuition and following it up. Going brave. And if you feel like there's some synchronicity with someone that you heard about, contact them. I feel like my sales training has helped me so much, because you just have to follow your heart and your intuition and connect. So the warriorship is, how do you get from following that very beginning awakening and intuition all the way through rebooting what you believe about yourself, making sure that those are true beliefs and not just something you were told, to actualization, where you are being and living your true self. That's my warriorship.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So first of all, would you tell everybody, how do they find you? And if they want to work with you or be in your classes, how do they find you?
I would love that. I have a website, and it's called discoveryofself.us. And on that website, there is a tab that has Connect. My former company was called Connecting Resources, and that's what I do. I would love to meet with you one-on-one or through Zoom or however, and just get to know who you are and see where it goes. And maybe you have a passion for education reform. I would love to connect you. Maybe you have a passion for prison reform, but each of us has that deep inside of us. And I would love to connect you with someone else that's really doing something to help you on your journey too.
Lovely. So discoveryofself.us. So I ask every person the same last question.
Uh-oh.
And the question is, what's the one thing you want women to know about the importance of their awakening?
It comes in layers. And by that, I mean that every day I feel like I awaken to some new thing about myself. And sometimes it's difficult. It causes you to go more introspective. Other times it's joyful, but no matter what it is, it's a part of the journey. And I think that being aware that you're awake, be in tune. Sometimes it won't look like what you think it will look like, but it's there. And if you put the question out to the universe, whatever that question is, and stay awake, you'll get the answer.
Okay, that's quite beautiful wisdom, ladies. I hope you were listening to that, because it does come in layers. We're evolutionary. And so it's never going to be the same as it was 5 years ago. I mean, so you just get to be present with it. How lovely, Pam. Well, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for doing the work that you do.
Thank
For
you.
being
I'm
so
honored.
Yeah, oh, thank you. And I guess what I want to say to you ladies is the same thing I tell you every week. Please remember how extraordinary you are. Please remember how amazing you are, that the universe breathed its life into you, that you came here as an unrepeatable event. So you've got something to give, something to bring, something to share that no one else can do. You can trust that fact. And the fact that the women that come here that I interview are just reminders, because they're no different than you. They've just stepped into their passion. I love you, and I will see you next week. Many blessings.